Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be reviewing the Plan Loto kitchen composition with an outstanding island with a special marble top. Let's dive in. So we said the Plan Loto composition is actually made up by two models, which are the Loto parts, and here we see the wooden parts of this island, and we see the side panel, and we see the fronts, and they are built in a peculiar way in the sense that the thickness of the panel does vary based on the position. And here we have this setting where we have 5 centimeters, 25, 5, 25, 5, 25, and so on. And when the door is closed, it creates this beautiful effect, just like this was a frame. And here we see that in the upper part of the door, a cut is made, and so this integrated handle is placed on top of the door. And I very much like this type of handle because it's not intrusive like a big applied handle, and it's not the traditional grip that you find on more modern kitchens. This type of panel gives you more a contemporary vibe and actually gives value to a properly well-built wooden door. Here we see the Plan side of the composition, and Plan shares the name of our bigger Plan collection for wall systems, and basically it's a plain panel available in a million different finishes, and of course you can customize it with different handles. And so we thought that matching the columns, which are actually here integrated in a niche, with the flat panels, with the plain panels, and an island with a peculiar type of door with its own personality, could create a nice setting. What is your take about this? Would you envision your kitchen being built with two different models based on the two different main items, the islands and the columns? Or do you envision your kitchen to be made with a single model? Write it in the comments. So let's review the dimensions of this very specific composition. Bear in mind that every composition is totally custom made, so this is just an example. So this island is 306 centimeters wide and it's 104.5 centimeters deep. 306, why? Because here we have 60 and 60, 60, 60 and 60s, and we get to 300s. Then we have 2 plus 1 of the top that comes out from the panel, and we have 2 plus 1 on the other side. So this is 306. As to the 104.5, basically it's 105, you can imagine it as being 60 centimeters on the main side, 60 centimeters depth, and then 45 centimeter depth. You can imagine that the basic depths of islands are normally 95, 105 or 120, 122. So this is the type of island that is I would call it an average depth. And this is the type of island where you don't have a space to place stools and to be used as a dining spot. Here on this type of island we have storage units on one side, 60 centimeters, storage units on the other side, and then we have the two side panels, which are actually meant to cover the sides and not let you perceive the fact that there are two units which are placed one on the back against the back of the other. So we review the single elements, and here we have a standard 60 centimeters door. Then we have 3 identical units of glass doors, and they're built in a peculiar way because they're actually composite doors in the sense that you have this aluminum frame, the fumé transparent glass, but still you have the same wooden details of the wooden doors. So they're not simply glass doors that are placed in the composition, but they are specifically built for the Loto model. I can point out that there's this nice LED lighting which is actually pointed towards the center, and so you perceive the lighting without perceiving your eyes being flashed. I'd like to point out that this, I said before that it is 60 plus 45. In this case here, we perceive a reduced depth, which is actually 13 something, because here behind these cabinets we have the hood element, and we'll see it later. So we move on. These are identical, these 3 items, and when here we get back to a standard wooden door. So here we see the big drawers right below the sink, the integrated sink, more about it later. And here we have all the special units for all the accessories to clean your kitchen and all the specific accessories for the garbage. I'd like to point out the beautiful finish of the side of the drawers, which is actually a wooden panel which matches the front finish. Okay, then we get to the dishwasher. Okay, perfectly integrated. And finally, again, 120 centimeters drawer with the same side finish. In this case, it is below the hob, and it is very rich with accessories. Well, one note about accessories. Well, first thing is you decide your own project for your own kitchen, and then a final step is, okay, I can add some accessory inside the units, and this of course doesn't change the project. In this case, we see it is very rich with these wooden and metal accessories. They are actually quite costly as accessories, but as we said, they are not the starting point of any project. Okay, standard drawer unit. In this case, we can perceive a reduced depth here again, because behind it there's the engine of the hood system. Two comments about important details. Here we have different heights. We see 91 and 95. This because the marble top here is 2 centimeters thick and here it is 6 centimeters thick. And this is meant for a specific reason, because with certain marbles you simply cannot have such a big slab of marble and you would not be able to transport it properly. And so here, for example, here, even in our showroom, we decided that we didn't want what could appear as a single piece with a joint, with a line in the middle. And so we decided that we could take this technical limit and turn it into a design feature. And so we said, okay, we'll have the sink unit with an increased thickness. Of course, it is hollow inside. It is built with 2 centimeters panels, which create this sort of cage, okay? And you can perceive the 2 centimeters right here, okay? And then we move on with a standard 2 centimeters top on the side. So, well, you still have the joint, you still have this line between the two parts, but you don't perceive it. You perceive it as a positive aspect because we differentiate the heights. And actually, also in terms of I would say ergonomics, it is quite practical because, well, depending on the user of the height of the user, for example, I find this height even to be slightly more comfortable than the lower one. Another detail I would like to point out is that the plinth is actually recessed from the side. We said that we have this base. Normally on an island, the plinth would be around here, just below the outer panel, and in this case it stays inside, and this is meant to give more a kind of floating perception to the island. I like it very much. We move on to the details of this composition of columns with the plank collection. This composition is 277 centimeters wide, then it is 66 centimeters deep, so slightly deeper than the standard 61 that we have on other models. And then we have a height of 218. And here we see how these custom solutions are actually fitted into pre-existing niches. About the single units, we have 2 fillers on the sides. You know, I'm not a fan or a supporter of fillers, but sometimes they are useful. So we move on with the fridge. A standard fridge with the refrigerator down below and the fridge itself above. Then we have a column with the oven and storage space underneath. In this case, we opted for a push-pull opening system instead of adding yet another handle because we didn't want these additional handles to clash with this sort of handle. And so this is the sort of extreme detail you can get to when you relate in depth with an interior designer. Okay, shall we add the handle, yes or no? And you decide together with your interior designer. And then we move on to the center point of this composition of columns, which is this unit, which is 142 centimeters wide. And it has these special doors which open and then slide in into the sides, okay? We said that this is 142. There's also the single column available, which is 71 centimeters. And the point of these sort of solutions is that when you start cooking, when you start using your kitchen, you open these doors, then you leave them open while you're cooking, you're using the kitchen. And when you're done, and maybe it's in a living room or in a big kitchen, dedicated kitchen, when you're done, well, then you simply close the doors. And here we have these recessed built-in handles, which are very practical. And here in the showroom, we decided to display this pantry version of these double columns. And so we have drawers. We have this stainless steel working top with this extending support, and actually you can imagine how you can work here with your fixed accessories on the fixed part, and then you can work on the sliding part, okay? And then we have all the accessories for knives and the cutting boards, and you have these shelves with the front panel, all the recessed LED lighting, and well, it's very much filled with light. We decided also to choose wood for the inside. And so here we have this pantry version, but there are other versions. For example, you could have the washing machine inside, you could have the dishwasher, you can have a column where you place your brushes and your cleaning products, so you can actually customize the inside of this unit. With this sort of module, you can actually build a mini kitchen of 142 centimeters. This is not the case, but you can imagine how this mini kitchen, for example, in a high-end office, could be used to, well, of course, serve your colleagues for their lunch breaks, but also have a beautiful high-end looks. So here we see this beautiful elm finish of the Loto kitchen collection, and I spoke before about elm in comparison, for example, to oak, because the veneer is actually interesting both in terms of shape and in terms of color options, and multiple colors are available. And I'd also like to point out how doors are manufactured in batches, and you can see how a single layer of wood veneer is used to manufacture the doors. And so you have the upper door, the lower door, and there's perfect continuation of the veneers. And this is, of course, on an high-end product like this, is beautiful. Of course, you have multiple options to choose from for a kitchen top. Here we see real marble. This is called Infinity. It comes from the northeast of Brazil, and this is a quartz-based marble, so it's very hard and very resistant to acids for being a natural marble. Often the Infinity marble leans more towards a dark gray black color. This is more grayish, greenish, and we like it very much. And I personally, as a marble lover, I personally love all these details that you can perceive on the surface, and that you can, of course, based on the part of the slab that you're taking in consideration. There are parts where it's more dense. You can also perceive black spots, and it's very varied in the sense that, for example, here there are these parts where it's more neutral, planar, I would say. And another detail which I love, you can perceive it on the, for example, here on the sink profile, where what would be perceived as a stain on the surface, when you see it from the side, you can actually see the quartz element in the Infinity marble. And of course, it's very subjective. Maybe my enthusiasm about it is excessive, but well, I love natural materials, because natural materials, they tell a story. And this is an example. In your kitchen, maybe you could order Infinity marble, and you might not have a detail like this, or you might have it in a different position or more than one, and this is the beauty of natural materials. As we said, this side is made with the Plinth collection, so we have loads of material. Here we see PET, which stands for polyethylene terephthalate. It's a special sort of laminate which has special feature in the sense that it can be recycled. It is resistant to UV rays, and this means that its color will stay the same for decades. It is resistant to scratches, and also it is resistant to chemicals. And so this makes it for a very good surface in the kitchen, because it is more expensive than basic laminates, but it is cheaper, for example, than certain other wooden finishes or lacquered finishes, and it has very special features in terms of resistance. So I think it's a good choice, because kitchens, of course, they must be beautiful, high-end kitchens, but they also must be very practical. Let's have a little segment about electrical appliances. Of course, electrical appliances do depend on the market we are sending the kitchen to, and of course, you can mount any brand of electrical appliances. Here, with this Plan Loto composition, we chose to display a Gaggenau set, and Gaggenau is actually the limousine, the Rolls-Royce of electrical appliances. Bear in mind that as of today, Gaggenau appliances are still handmade, and this is not to say that the fact that they are handmade means high level, but it actually, Gaggenau brand actually unites the handmade process together with very high-end and updated technology. Just to give you an example, I'm not an expert in appliances, so I don't have detailed information. I will now activate the hood, and you see, well, there are other types of integrated hoods like this, where they are integrated behind the hob and actually built in the furniture items, but you don't have this sort of special glass panel with integrated LED, and I can tell you that it's already working perfectly in terms of absorbing vapors and so on, and it's perfectly coordinated with the hob itself, which is completely programmable. And to give you an idea, with other brands you have areas of the hob. Here you place your pots in any position, and the hob itself does recognize the position where you are placing it. It does recognize the dimension of the pot, of the pan that you are placing on top, and so it doesn't have 4 zones, 5 zones, it has infinite zones, and you can actually place everything as you wish, and everything is recognized automatically. Just to give you a hint of how modern and technologically advanced is the Gaggenau line of appliances. Here we see the fridge. I can't tell you about the detailed finishes, but well, of course, the Gaggenau website or our consultants can help you about it. But I can tell you that even only by looking at the inside, at the accessories, you perceive a different craftsmanship than other brands. The same goes with the oven, which actually, for the way it is built, it actually has a gigantic dimension of the inside, and all special material, very thin door, but super very high-end performance in terms of temperatures. Well, you just one last detail. For example, when you buy Gaggenau, you have a technician from Gaggenau that comes to your home to teach you about all the features of these splendid appliances, and then this technician will come to visit you the following year. And so it's, I agree, it's an investment, but it's a long-term investment. So we've come to the end of today's product review about the Plan Loto kitchen collection with this beautiful island. It's a special column, it's a Brazilian countertop. I hope that you liked it, and see you next time.